I thank you, Father, for inviting me to, and he said a few words, so I'll try to keep it within a few words. He said, I want you to come and say a few words on truth and reconciliation and the legacy of the Indian Residential School, he told me. So that was about 2 weeks ago, and that cost me many nights of wondering, what am I supposed to say? So I'm kind of a procrastinator. I call myself the world's #1 procrastinator. Well, everything right to the line. Last night I had my book out on truth and reconciliation. I had the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. I was going to reach for my Indian Act. I said, no, enough of that. That's not what you're called to do. So, yes, there is truth to what happened. It was unfortunate, maybe with good intentions, but the Indigenous people did suffer many things, especially in the Indian Residential School system. And out of that, we've learned that there are survivors. We have survivors today, and we have those that didn't survive. And we learn about that too, with all the unmarked graves that have been discovered just recently. And the truth is, it was a plan that was executed. And reality is, maybe the consequences didn't actually fit what is planned. But in the call to action on truth and reconciliation, talks about educating, the non-Indigenous community on treaty rights and Indian residential school systems and policies. So a lot of you know, I see, as I look into the congregation, I see people that are experiencing this, but maybe there are some that are not. So I welcome you to go to your phone, Google it, anything you want. What's the purpose of the Indian Act? What's the purpose of the truth and reconciliation, the call to action for truth and reconciliation? You will find that you get a better understanding why so many people may took their own personal time to deal with this. And sadly, the children that were found, some very young age. And our community is no exception. We had our people go to the Indian Residential School. And out of that, they came back after they aged out on the system, started families, but maybe they didn't deal with their hurts. And that next generation was inflicted with very similar effects. And it's almost like a snowball. The next generation, maybe 4 generations since that era of the residential school systems. So today we become statistics to the nation. Children in care, TB, diabetes, heart condition on the Indian reserves. All this maybe is a result. Definitely, the truth is our way of life was imposed upon, and we had to compromise is our way of living. We have to adopt maybe the Western world and their diet and their activity. We don't know really if our bodies were can handle the foods that are out there today and the lifestyle that we do live today. But I'm going to talk about the reconciliation and the healing. As Indigenous people, the stories that have been handed down to us over time is who we are. It's what today I can reflect on to make it for your information. The Nakota culture, very similar to other First Nations, in reference to the children that were found in unmarked graves. They passed on, their spirit is gone. But in our culture, that spirit has to journey, similar to our faith as Catholics, to heaven. But in our culture, we call it the memorial celebration and ceremony that we do for 4 years, not to terminate at 4 years, but very firmly and aggressively in the 4 years. I'm not sure if that tradition is still carried out to what it used to be when in our Nakota culture, when someone was lost, that was very dear to the family. For 4 years, it would be almost like a Lent. You put away all your preferable things, things you desire. You deny yourself. Don't even visit. You give yourself to the loss. 4 years' time, then you have to continue. You have to journey. You have to move forward. And every year after that, there's a memorial for the souls that are passed. And one last thing for that is in our culture, it is even practiced today when we prepare burial for our past souls. When we do our procession to the gravesite, our pallbearers or singers and drummers, they don't look back. They look forward. They don't want that spirit to view what was out there. They want the spirit to view forward and not be burdened with the past. So with the healing of these little ones, I think that's what we as Indigenous people have to do. We have to look forward for them and pray and do our memorial ceremonies and pray that they will carry on forward. And for the second part, the reconciliation, was a little more challenging because the subjects are still here on earth. We have to reconcile with, I guess, the government. In that truth I mentioned, they're responsible for that plan, implementing the Indian Act. And when I was younger, I did go to school too. And I learned a few things. And when we say government, it's people. People that support those governments. So when we say reconciliation, it's the Indigenous people with the people at large. And that's a little more challenging. But I want to mention one of our ancient warriors that took to heart that this reconciliation needs action. He was a warrior in all aspects, ceremony, healing, traditional ways, until he met the church. I'm not sure which order it is. But some of you might remember the ancient warrior is Black Elk. I'm not sure what his Christian name is. But he went from what I said, a warrior. He was converted, and he went all over the eastern seaboard talking to people, conferences. At first, people even threw eggs at him. This reconciliation, like I said, is going to be a challenge. He said, those people must be mad because they're throwing eggs. He didn't take it as an offense. But that's a determination that we as Indigenous people have to accept. It's not going to come easy. The action is a little more challenging than words. I think in all parts of the world that reconciliation is still a challenge in many societies. So today, I didn't prepare a speech. I try my best to not be repetitious, and I brought my protocol of invitation. So I speak in the spirit of the protocol. And it's a sad moment for Indigenous people. My family was very fortunate. My grandfather put a stop like this, and no, you're not taking my children. He had 4 daughters and 2 sons that didn't go to residential school. But the next generation did. But they all aged out, died of old age. Some of them learned to speak English, some of them didn't. But the one thing that our parents always said, one of them didn't go to school, like I said, didn't go to residential school. My dad went to, I think he used to say grade 5. He went to residential school in Red Deer. And as we're growing up, they never ever mentioned why education would be a benefit to us, but always encouraging us to get ready for school, go to school. And I think most of my younger siblings all did whatever they can with education, learning the curriculum that was offered to us. And the only way I see education today as I stand here is why all this came about with the Indian residential school. We can turn it into a positive thing. In 1984, I was traveling overseas to Hong Kong, and I met a young Chinese man who sat in the same seating. It's I think a 13-hour flight to Tokyo, so we didn't talk to each other for about 4 hours. I looked at him, and he didn't even look at me, just kept distance. There was no COVID too that time, and yet we kept distance. Finally, I broke the ice. I said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Hong Kong." And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Canada, Alberta, from the Paul First Nation." And he said, where are you going? I said, oh, I'm going over here. I can't tell you. But it was a political mission that I was foolish to get assigned to, so I'm not going to talk about that one. But he said he came to Toronto as a young man to learn to study law. And he graduated in, I think, McGill University, and he got his degree in law. He said, now I'm going back to Hong Kong. The British just returned Hong Kong to the Chinese people. And he said, I'm going to take back what I learned, and I'm going to help Hong Kong, he said. And then he put a real serious question to me. He said, what do you people profess you're good at? We Chinese people are the best cooks in the world, the best chefs. We can feed the whole world, and no one complain. So I wasn't too worldly experienced then. It had me thinking, what am I good for? So I said, well, before the Europeans came over, we were here for many years, thousands of years. And why we're still here today is because we had the ability to navigate our way, to adapt. And he said, yes, that's very good. And you should be doing that. And today, I think, with the challenge of reconciliation and healing, we have to navigate our way, and we have to be focused on where we're going.